Hi, sorry, I was having a little dance there. I'm Iszi Lawrence. I'm a very serious grown-up. I wrote a book. It's a very serious book. It's historical fiction. I don't know if you know what historical fiction is, but basically what it means is that your story, the thing that you're talking about, is in the past. Right, and usually most historical fiction books are based on real things that actually happened or on real people who actually existed. So, for example, my historical fiction book, which is obviously the best, right, it's called The Unstoppable Letty Pegg. Now, Letty Pegg, she didn't exist. She's made up. She's out of my brain, right? But loads of people in the book did exist. For example, Edith Garrod, who taught Letty Pegg Jiu Jitsu. Back in 1910, by the way, women were doing martial arts. They were fighting each other. Why were they doing martial arts? Well, because they had to fight the police. I know, women versus the police. Amazing. I found out about this through my mate Naomi. She was like going, oh, by the way, did you know the suffragettes did jiu-jitsu? And I was like, what? Like, yeah. Like, the suffragettes, they'd pick up big coppers, big police officers and chuck them to the ground when they tried to arrest them. And I'm like, why didn't I learn that at school? Because at school, right, for me, the story of the suffragettes was there was loads of very meek women who took life very seriously and they really wanted the vote, and so they used to go on long marches and they would get arrested and they'd be in prison, and because they really wanted the vote and to be taken seriously, they wouldn't eat any food, and then the police eventually went, oh, okay, well, we'll let them go, and then eventually one woman got hit by a horse, and then eventually, after a while, because they were so good and so noble, the men gave them the vote. Aren't men No, that's not what happened at all. It's not what happened at all. They were crazy, right? Seriously, the suffragettes, not only did they do jiu-jitsu, they did loads of, they bombed places. They burnt down pavilions, okay? They, put ink inside pillar boxes. They cut phone lines. They were mad. They were crazy. Right, okay, get this, right? They would go into art galleries and destroy the paintings. They were proper naughty, right? You don't get anything. Anyway, that's kind of the point of writing historical fiction, though. You can talk about the things that nobody else knows about. You can make what's really boring. This is what you need to pass your GCSEs. Right? None of that. No. Get to the real history, okay? Well, I don't know what I'm saying. Get to the real history by making it up. But no, seriously, it's a brilliant way to start, because often, if somebody asked me to write a story, I wouldn't know what to write about. I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean write a story? Like make it about the colour blue. Like, what? I can't, how do you start a story? Well, I like to start a story with something that interests me, like this thing that I heard that suffragettes did jiu-jitsu. What? So I went away and I found out about it. And then I decided to put my characters in the story, and it kind of grew from there. So it's almost like, if you're given a blank sheet of paper and you're told to draw something, you're like, I don't know what to draw. I could draw anything. Tell me what to draw. I don't know what to draw. Or you're given like a join the dots kind of thing, and you don't have the instructions, but you can kind of work out the picture, and you can make your own picture out of something that's already there. And that's the beauty of writing about the past, is that you can get your story and make it real, and you can find your story in the past. So if you wanted to write, if you've never written any historical fiction before and you wanted to have a go, this is what I would do. I would get a point of history that's already in your head. Something you might know about Henry VIII. Okay, you think, okay, Henry VIII, we know about him. He had loads of wives. Okay, and so you might want to, for example, tell the story of one of his wives. And you might say, well, how did she feel? What about his last wife? Going, oh goodness, one he divorced, the other he beheaded, the other one died, and the other one he divorced again, the one before me he beheaded. How does that make me feel? And it's that thing, it's putting yourself in the past, putting yourself in the mind. You could you don't have to even be a real human. You could be one of the rats in Henry VIII's kitchen, watching all the food, all the peacocks being prepared, all the endless boars and all the things. So he had huge meals, and that's the thing. You could just be watching all this happening and describing all the things that you can see that are different to today. Because that's the beauty of the past. You don't have now, if somebody goes missing, we can find out where they are. We can just check Facebook, or we can have a look and we can text them, we can phone them. Before mobile phones, how did people meet each other? How did they agree? One thing in this book, in The Unstoppable Letty Pegg, was the amount of postcards. There were several, you know how you get your post in the morning, most days except for Sunday, right? back in the past, they'd have several different posts a day. So you could have, like, you have your morning post, you have your mid-morning post, you have your afternoon post, you have your evening, and then you have your last post. I mean, amazing. So there are all these sort of like little facts, and you can go and you can read like non-fiction books, and suddenly when you've got a purpose, reading a history book becomes a lot more interesting. Because you're like, I don't know how they made soup back in the past before they had one of those blitzer machines. How did they do it? You can find out by doing little bits of research. So yeah, I also would think, when you go back into the past and you're thinking about your story, I want you to think this, and it's one thing that I've actually heard actors talk about. You know, actors who get on stage and they pretend to be they pretend to be somebody else. What they're not doing is they're not being them in different costumes. They're really trying to understand where the character's coming from. And this is a great idea with story, because nobody in history, even the really nasty people, right, nobody thinks that they're the baddie. They all think that they're a good person. So, like, for example, Julius Caesar, invading Gaul, he's writing back, to Rome going, well, I am doing this for the nobility of Rome and I'm brilliant. All those Gauls don't think he's brilliant. They're all going, oh, I'm dead. That's not fun, right? So how is it that people, justify themselves? How do they think differently to how we do? Like, in this book, I've got, like, the person who's stopping the women getting the vote, the Home Secretary who stops the women getting the vote, is Winston Churchill. Now, Winston Churchill, we know, is a national hero. He saved us during the Second World War, and here he is in 1910. Like, my main character, Letty Pegg, doesn't like him at all because he's he's causing all the fights in her house because her mum wants the vote and her dad's is, employed indirectly by Winston Churchill to stop her getting it. So I want you to, when you're writing characters and you're thinking about your story, really put yourself in their shoes. So imagine you're like a pirate, okay, and you're in the Caribbean and you've done really well. You've got all of this treasure. What are you going to do with it? You've robbed it. You can't put it in a bank. What you got to do? You've got to bury it. You've got to bury it, hide it from her, and then you can go back at a later date. But if you go back at a later date, you're going to need a map. You need a treasure map. Okay, make a treasure map, maybe with a little code, but what if somebody else gets hold of that map? And then you have your story. So these things all actually existed. The past is an amazing place full of all the most horrible stories you can imagine, but also the most heroic stories you can think of. And it doesn't have to be the people you've heard of. It could be people like Letty Pegg, who don't make the history books. People like Edith Garrod, who are real characters in history, but aren't hugely famous. So I want you to go away and just have a think, write a little story. Be that sort of, be the horse who's Genghis Khan is riding on, his favourite horse. Why not? You could be the person who is in one of the ships when they discover America. Put yourself in the position of, not knowing what's going to happen when your reader obviously does. It's really good fun. Anyway, I recommend writing as much historical fiction as you can. I'm still writing historical fiction right now. I absolutely adore it. If you want to read about the adventures of Letty Pegg, please buy this book. It's called The Unstoppable Letty Pegg. It's by Bloomsbury, and my name is spelt really weird. It's ISZI, but I like it because I got the .com. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, please do that. Other than that, do keep your hands up when fighting, because you can protect your head, and it's important. Bye.